All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sales Intel webinar, Signals to Success. How do we build and drive an efficient go-to-market engine? Today, I am excited to have amazing panelists of all practitioners and the go-to-market leaders to join me. Today, we are going to be diving deeper into a topic that is top of mind for most of the go-to-market leaders, which is signals, and then from there derive other topics, automations, how to put them into the go-to-market stack that we use them. So I would love to start with the introductions. On my screen, why don't you go with Lee, you first, from left to right on my screen?
Sounds good. Thank you, Manoj, for having me. I'm Lee Zucker. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Sales at SalesLoft. And so I lead all net new business as well as expansion growth business for our premier organization. So it's representative of our commercial, mid-market, and majors team. And I'm based out of Chicago, and I'm at SalesLoft via the Drift acquisition, so I have a lot of background at Drift as well. For those of you who don't know about SalesLoft, essentially we as revenue leaders are operating in a macro climate of volatility where go-to-market team productivity and effectiveness is challenged. We are on a path for profitability rather than growth at all costs. And so SalesLoft is a revenue orchestration platform powered by AI that drives predictable, durable revenue growth and better customer experiences for go-to-market teams via cadencing, workflow, forecasting, conversational intelligence, call recording, a full platform to drive efficiency, effectiveness, getting reps and go-to-market teams closer to their quota.
Great. Awesomely. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all things signals and how do you orchestrate them to enable all the sellers to hit their numbers. Lauren.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Silvers. I'm the Director of Sales Transformation at Okta, and I'm based in Chicago. And most of my career, I've been in enablement and education, but then pivoted over to RevOps and set up an entire signal-based selling infrastructure to go along with a product-led growth to product-led sales motion at Intercom. And am now, part launching a huge global methodology program for Okta, but also focused on, increasing pipeline and taking advantage of signals on the sales side as well. So very excited to share, more of what we're building and what I've been able to do before.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks.
Thank
At the
you.
scale of companies you're implementing at Okta, I'm sure our audience will get a lot of practical nuggets here from you. So thank you, Lauren, for joining us. Natalie.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I am Natalie Marcatilio, head of growth at a company called Novatic. We're an interactive demo company. I'm really excited to talk about signals for two reasons. One, last year we went PLG and implemented a product-led sales motion. So firsthand experience what it was like to not have signals and overwhelm our sellers with a bunch of some low quality, some good quality leads and figure out that signal motion. And then the flip side, we use signals a lot for our own product with interactive demos, seeing like who went through the demo, how far did they make it, what are they most interested in. So definitely think about a lot from both our product and then our own go-to-market motion.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Natalie, for joining. That's one of the areas that I would love to dive deeper into. We all hear about signals, but what is it? So thank you for joining us, Natalie. Nikita.
Awesome. Thanks, Manoj. Nikita, VP of Sales at Partner Stack, based out of Toronto, Canada. Similar to Lee, I manage all of our net new business acquisition, our expansion across all of our sellers globally. And for anyone that doesn't know what Partner Stack is, we're basically a partner relationship management software that helps a lot of organizations manage and scale their partner channels while also introducing them to net new partners. Honestly, I'm really excited about this panel because I would say we're probably late to the game on signals, but we've been investing heavily in surfacing signals to a lot of our kind of sellers across the board. And I think, with partners, it brings kind of like a unique lens into the signal space, specifically around second-party intent signals. So I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit about that and how folks can leverage those signals as well too.
Yeah, we'll unpack all that first, second, third-party signals. So my name is Manoj Sharmani. Thanks, Nikita. Super excited about on that dimensions of it's not just your first party or third party. There's this partner ecosystem that brings a very tangible and meaningful signals for you. My name is Manoj Sharmani, founder and CEO. I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Intel, where we provide a pipeline generation platform. When you unpack the marketing, what we do is we provide you data and signals, and we operationalize our signals into systems like Salesloft and others, right? So let's dive right in. As I have been talking to so many revenue leaders about the signals, there are spectrum of revenue leaders. There's some that have been practicing just like Lauren, right? They have put those signals into works. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have some that say, what is signal? I hear all the signals, AI, they put everything under one bucket and say, what is the first party signal? The second party, we hear third party. We don't quite understand. So why don't we start by unpacking what is a signal? And then we dive into first party, second party, and third party signal. Lauren, do you want to kick us off with or Nikita, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. I mean, it's really interesting. So I'm probably going to oversimplify it, but to me, the way that I define a signal is it's a data point. That there's a lot of different data points that it could be, right? That basically signifies whether or not a customer or a prospect is worth reaching out to, right? Like that's the way that I personally define it. But yeah, I think that's my simple definition of a signal.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to add to that? I think.
Yeah, I can add kind of, I think people often try to understand, what's a first party versus second party versus third party signal. So happy to kind of break that down too. And I agree with Nikita. I think I said that right, Nikita. That it's really comes down to like what you're giving a rep to increase pipeline. But first party signals are data that you own internally, could be data in SFDC in your data warehouse. Oftentimes it's unstructured and has to be structured or unmasked or put into a format where it can be utilized. And then second party signals, I think everyone's, pretty like everyone knows about intent signals. It's resold first party data, I think is kind of a good way to think about it, from G2, Trust Radius, Bombora, mostly like intent signals. And then third party data is all other data, that is available via any data broker or available by the internet or via MCP connector. But that's the most probably exciting new development in signals, is that now we have AI that can go to like actual websites and find really interesting data about, what may define a potential prospect that has buying propensity or would be a good fit prospect. So I think those are the three types of data. Did I miss anything?
And that's the
Group?
first thing. It's interesting that you put the Bombora and Trust Radius and G2 in the second party.
Is that not right? Because people sometimes
Okay,
like
people sometimes
think of second
just
party
use
as
that exactly second and third party. I would love to
Mhm.
get Nikita's point of view as
Yeah.
as he mentioned, like partner generated data or the signals is second party.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think you can mix it between second or third, depending on like the definition. I think it's a very fluid definition across the board. The way that I've always personally thought of second party data is like partner source data. So any third party organization that might be collecting that first party data on their end, right? So
Mhm.
let's say, I don't know, you're partnered with a third party integration provider, and you're mapping with them on something like a crossbeam. That's how I've always thought of second party data. But in theory, right, like you could bring G2 into that mix in some way, shape, or form, right? I think it's like a fluid motion depending on what signals you're looking at and what you're using for sure.
One thing that I would layer in there, and I agree with the categories, regardless of the fluidity of how any individual might define them, is the ability to take action on first party signals is really critical in a
Mhm.
go-to-market team. And I think while third party or second party external signals will categorize them, are super valuable and impactful for building pipeline or directing go-to-market teams to focus your time here or prioritize these accounts or whatnot. The majority of like a business's revenue, especially in our world of SaaS, is built on incremental from existing customers, because existing customers want to continue to buy or invest in one platform, or a centralized platform. But also what we call like the least expensive revenue to like get or maintain is your customer base. And so there's so much impactful information and insights that are living within different data sources within your company. And a first-party signal, something that you own, is so valuable for a CSM or for a renewal manager or for an account exec to actually take action on, but it's living in a place where they can't actually do it. So I actually think like the first-party signal is one of the more like underrated ways to activate your go-to-market team in whichever path you want to go, whether it be focusing on renewal and retention, cross-sell, upsell, or net new. Yeah, it's something super valuable that we've been dealing with at SalesLoft.
Yeah, that's great. No, that brings up other points. You mentioned CS. Who within the organization, the go-to-market, uses these signals? Is it like certain type of signals that you send to someone, or is there a central, call it like chief signal officer, who's the one who's taking in all the signals and distributing?
I can take that
Sure.
first. So we definitely have what we have and what we recommend for our customers is like RevOps is a key function in terms of like what are those signals, what are the most effective signals, and who should take action on them. Depending on the size of your RevOps team, you have different stakeholders across the go-to-market funnel, whether it be pre-sales or post-sales, taking action on that. It really is based upon what the ultimate outcome is that you want to drive there. Because I think what's important with a signal is that there is action taken and that signal is like filtered to the right place. So there's not duplicity in like two people or a team of people trying to take action on something and then contacting a customer or prospect like all together, which seems like there's more of a disjointed organization. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay, so RevOps still is a central point, right? And then they orchestrate within the go-to-market.
Yeah, and you have to have buy-in from like the different departments, right? Like if your chief revenue officer, VPs of sales aren't bought in that these signals, whether it be third party, second party, first party, aren't valuable for their team, well then like once they start not taking action on them, who's going to pick up the pieces? They don't report into RevOps, they report into sales leadership. So I think RevOps is critical in terms of assessing and kind of navigating that or being traffic police, if you will. But also like having a platform that does that for you based on AI can of course support that as well.
Lauren, you have operationalized lots of signals in your previous role and are doing it now. Who's your central point of contact?
Well, it depends on where I sit, but mostly, RevOps and the business technology team, because the most important thing is like, well, there's two sides of the equation, I would say. As Lee was mentioning, trying to really understand which signals are the most relevant ones for your organization for the different use cases, both for driving pipeline on the prospect side, driving upsell, cross-sell pipeline on the customer side, or perhaps, driving retention up or mitigating churn early on with the earliest indicators. So, that would be a cross-functional group that you would pull together to identify those potential signals and the data that you need. But I think the most important is sales ops, because it's really around how do you get the right people and to orchestrate those signals for you and set up those workflows and automations and make sure that everything works according to plan.
That's great. Nikita or Natalie, if you want to add something to this discussions within your organization.
We're a much smaller team, so we didn't necessarily have RevOps like orchestrating this all. But as far as who benefits it and who controls it, each sort of individual team, and I think what's very important is the individual contributor would have say of what's the most important signals. So when we rolled this out for PLG, we made sure to get feedback from the reps of saying like, what is too much? Because we realized if we sent them too much information, they would end up just ignoring and filtering it out versus what are the signals you really pay attention to. So for us, again, a much smaller company, but it was most important just to make sure the end user of the signals had input on, do I like this signal? Is it being presented in a way that's actionable versus overwhelming? And then are there any signals we might be missing? And reporting that back to who's doing the orchestration.
Got it. And speaking of volume, only 5% of the companies are in market at any given point of time for a solution that you or us are selling or services that we are offering. How do you find those 5% of companies and prioritize them and put them in action ahead of your competitors?
Yeah, I can take that one. So finding in-market prospects is like both an art and a science, but I think about this a lot. And I think it comes down to finding the data points that are going to be proxy for their in-market. So obviously, like, we've been until now really focused on the intent part of that puzzle and whether they downloaded a white paper or how many people like visited your website, and that is definitely part of it. But when you, for example, with Okta, look at a good fit like ICP prospect for us would have multiple login points of interaction for their website, or they would be hiring for a role dedicated to multi-factor authentication, or they like have a AWS or Google as a hosted platform, not Microsoft, So there's different ways that we like shape, what a good fit prospect looks like. And then an in-market prospect would be they have like there's a data point that would suggest that there's a compelling event for them to be ready for your solution or service. So I think and it's different for every company, right? So I think this is with the rise of the go-to-market engineer. I think like that whole role, which was pioneered by Clay, they are very, very well versed in helping companies find those proxy data points that will indicate that they're in market and buying propensity. And then obviously using that from everything from territory planning down to, what are the top like best plays that you can run with those in-market prospects, and delivering those plays in the flow of reps work. So they feel like they're getting, a highly qualified hot lead in the flow of their work with all the relevant information and workflows that they need to be able to execute on.
Go-to-market engineer. I have had the long debates with go-to-market leaders about this new role. Starting with the smaller companies, they're saying, no, RevOps is my go-to-market, or my marketing is my GTM engineering role. All the larger companies where they have formally opened up the role go-to-market engineer. I think that's a role. How many of you, off the topic, how many of you are hiring or already have go-to-market engineer on your team? Like none, not even you, Lauren.
We haven't titled it go-to-market engineer. I'm not sure if this is completely in line. What we have stood up though is what we call an office of pipeline. It is roles within our RevOps and operations team. And the intention of the office of pipeline is to programmatically support our sales teams primarily in building the most effective and efficient pipeline possible that converts at a really high rate. So this is inclusive of people who are aligned to the different segments and help execute everything from different sales plays and cadences that they should be operating on, to partnering with marketing to support, hey, like we're hosting an event or a webinar, and this is how we should be building lists and prospecting specifically to these folks. But we also have as part of the team is an analyst that's always analyzing where pipeline is coming from, what opportunities we have in terms of creating more pipeline. And then we have an enablement manager who's enabling our go-to-market teams on building pipeline and going to market in the most effective and efficient way. So we have really developed a pretty sophisticated practice around it. And the whole intention is because we know that sales created pipeline is the strongest pipeline that converts at the highest rate, meaning it's saving time and resources from across the business of working on inefficient, non-converting pipeline. And so we want to put the sales folks in the driver's seat for creating that pipeline first and foremost, and give them all the tools to do it while they're focusing on all the other things that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
This is good. I love the office of pipeline. I may
Me
put a couple of
too.
my team members and say, you know what, you're in the office of pipeline. That way there's zero ambiguity as to which department are you in.
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Or what your
follow-up
mission is to
question
build a
about that?
pipeline.
Lee, is this like everyone's second job or is this their first job, office of pipeline?
Primary job.
Amazing. All right, thank you. That's very cool.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. We are a mid-sized company. We do have all of those roles that you mentioned. We put them in the go-to-market team, but I love the fact that you're making pipeline generation as a primary role for that. Nikita, you were going to add something.
No, I was just going to say, similar to Lee, I don't think we internally have gotten approval for go-to-market engineer designation. Transparently, I think the actual engineers on the software side get very particular with the engineer title sometimes. I don't know if anyone else has run into that, but we definitely have folks dedicated to kind of our pipeline team or on demand gen to developing signals with the RevOps team and making them actionable for the sales team across the board. Similar to basically the Lee's concept of basically like a pipeline team. Just like how do you align them closest to the people that have always done it and that have always leveraged some level of intent or signals to do what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is great. So, by the very definition of signals, there's a temporal element to it. Like it has a time element. The strength of signal goes down. What role does the automation play in ensuring that your sales team or your go-to-market teams are getting those signals in time? I know, Lee, you and your company and your teams provide the pipelines for that, right? Provide the foundation for that. So I'd love to get your feedback on automations as it pertains to the signals.
Yeah. Timing is critical on it. And the thing is a rep can't do everything as quickly as you want them to do. They have intro meetings, hopefully more external meetings. And so taking action on what is the most critical point or critical signal to take action on is really important. And so whether they do that manually or autonomously, where you're driving some personalization, we want to make sure that we help support them take that action. What's almost equally as important is tracking that the rep has actually been able to do that, or the go-to-market team member is able to do that. And so something that we track really closely is pace in which you've responded to a signal or an action, as well as signals unacted and effectiveness of acting on that signal. So those are all important things. I think the last thing I'll say before passing it on is the prioritization of those is also something that you need to be able to rely on a platform or rely on an office of pipeline concept or a go-to-market engineer to actually do, because not all signals are necessarily created equal, because a hot signal on a low value account may not be as great as a moderate signal, however you measure moderate, on a high value account. So working through all that, kind of to Natalie's point around who's the stakeholder, who's the IC, who's the manager, who's the segment that you're driving those signals and those actions toward. That's an important part of the dynamic too, and leveraging AI to help support that is the way that you build those efficiencies.
Great. Not to confuse the audience with yet another element of signals, right? There's a signal strength, how strong is the signal? How likely is that somebody's in the market today, right? And that's different from the first, second, and third party. That is, the origination of a signal defines Is it a first party within your second party, your close partners, and third party, the vendors, right? Um, Great. Lauren, you have implemented at scale these signals, right? What automations did you put in place?
Yeah, so we basically, structured the data and we used this is like way back before like Clay had all their integrations and a lot of the solutions that we'll be talking about later were productized, but we used a reverse ETL tool to kind of marry SFDC data with product utilization data and patterns over time. Um, and then we basically just sent reps Slack messages that routed them to a Coda page. So like Notion, Coda was really easy for them. It was kind of a one click that basically just said, your account X just qualified for, Y play and for an upsell play or an automation play. And here's why. So you give them the information. I think it's important that we've been talking about signals, but like when you're giving a rep a signal, you should also be giving them all the relevant information that they might need. And it might even be like firmographic or technographic data or other data that will give them a sense of like the why this signal, this account for these reasons. So we would give them all of that. We would have them maybe do a little bit of light manual additional qualification. We would give them a link to the sequence, so like the SalesLoft sequence that they would use to actually tailor and share that insight. So we would kind of not only set up the workflow automation, but also take everything to the level of where we could take it in order for reps to essentially like execute. And I always think about it as, there's always the best of intentions for reps. Like, I want to drive pipeline today. But then if they have to switch contexts and switch tools and go look at 6sense and then SFDC and then Sales Navigator, and they're like pulling all that together, by the time they get to action, maybe they have a meeting, right? So for me, it was all about how do we reduce the gap between intention and action so they can take action in the flow of their work and make it actually flow, right? So give them that workflow in a much more streamlined manner. But there's a lot of ways that you can automate signals. But I think that the one that I think is the most high value is how do you deliver a data-driven play, signal-based play to a rep who will recognize that and really want to follow that, kind of stop what they're doing and execute on it and do it in a way that it's going to actually result in the outcome. Also, there was a virtuous feedback loop that we used where we would then track conversion rate. And so then on the Coda page, I would say this, is a intermediate level, of effort, and it converts at a 67% conversion rate. So kind of giving them the information of the why it's important to prioritize this now, I think is another element. Last thing I'll say is that we partnered with Go Nimbly, which is a RevOps consulting firm, which is really specializing in this area, to actually take the MVP that I created and pull it into Salesforce where reps work anyways. And we created a custom object in Salesforce that mimicked the opportunity workflow. And when we did that, we were able then to really track, like, did they actually follow this play? And then that also enabled us to report out on the success of the different plays that we were prioritizing that were signal based.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Natalie, your team, you mentioned you're a smaller team. What automation stack do you have, or what automation strategies does your team use?
Yeah, we're definitely a fan of Clay. So we've used that to sort of automate a few different both first party and third party intent signals. So maybe things like firmographics. I talked, that we are PLG Motion. We even use it to like enrich Gmails, figure out what company they're from, size, industry, as well as tie in some first party signals. We send that all into Slack channels. We use Post Home to get some first party data signals like what website, what page of the website did they view? What actions did they take in product? For us and for PLG, it's been so important to see, did they hit those aha moments? Did they try to upgrade an app? Did they do the filling page? And then send that all into one nice organized Slack message. And we actually set up separate Slack channels for each team member so they can see, okay, this is the actions that my PQLs are taking and only my PQLs. I don't have to worry about everything else.
Cool. So, we wouldn't be, thank you, Natalie. We wouldn't be doing a justice to this webinar if we didn't talk about AI, right? Signals, automation, AI, lots of initiatives, lot of progress, ton of progress in general with AI. How has AI shaped your view, when it comes to signals, go to market, and prioritizing the accounts for your reps, who are generating a pipeline?
I can start off there. I think the biggest thing is AI is let us pick up on signals that previously were very difficult and manual to find. So for example, for us, a big good intent signal is if someone has a demo video on their website or a secondary CTA like that. And
Mhm.
through AI scraping, we might be able to see if they have like a watch or see the product in action or try product CTA that we only would have really gotten before if we had like manually gone through each website and seen. So I think the biggest thing is because it can use more natural language or just scrape the entire website, we can get way more granular with the signals. And oftentimes those are the signals that make the biggest impact because it's not something as obvious to everyone, not that like everyone could buy.
This is a pretty good use case.
Yeah.
How about you, Lee?
Sorry, Manoj, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to prompt to you
Yeah.
about the same question.
Yeah, AI has been absolutely transformative in how we think about go-to-market in general, but also activating signals. I think about kind of my first sales jobs. I didn't even get like a lead list. I'd like have to go and like figure out leads in my area and then like make my own spreadsheet and then like do the research and like do some prioritization maybe once a quarter, presented in a QBR, and like those were the leads that I was going after. But like that is completely like the least efficient way to actually go to market because as we've been talking about, there's different times where customers or prospects are in market for different things. And so like being able to reprioritize your accounts automatically via what bots are figuring out based upon intent signals or changes in organizations, whether it be change in roles or they just raised rounds of funding or they have a whole bunch of new hires that they just posted on their website that they're going after. Like those are like all opportunities to go and prioritize one account over another account. And that does not have to be done manually anymore. That could all be done via AI. Another like thing that like good sellers should be spending hours and hours researching a hot prospect or one of their more strategic accounts. They don't have to do that anymore. There are totally agents that can help consolidate all of the research that makes sense for them and what they want to go sell, and even craft a talk track for the initial 30-minute discovery session and elevator pitch to a customer or prospect. So really, and I know like the title of this webinar is around like efficiency and building like an efficient go-to-market engine. What we do as go-to-market professionals is we solve customer problems. Like sales is the outcome of that. If we can solve customer problems more efficiently and effectively, well, that's why we should like rely on AI to do that. And that is what AI and some of the platforms out there, obviously Salesloft being included as one of them, is helping go-to-market teams leverage that AI to prioritize accounts, research accounts, take action on accounts, follow up on accounts. And it's something that like didn't exist even,
3 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. Great. So, researching prioritizing the account, researching the account, and even very relevant messaging, right? With the LLMs, you train the engine about what you do. The engine already knows what does a prospect does, and then they define very, very relevant messages for you. Lauren, you have implemented AI in your current role or are thinking of implementing AI?
With the signal-based workflows,
Signals, automations.
we're in the process of setting that up right now. But again, it's everything that Lee mentioned. We're starting at the level of go-to-market planning, prioritization. Now we're adding some sales use cases. One that we're actually really focused on right now is extracting data and patterns and insights from our Gong transcripts and really understanding also data from our closed lost and closed won to see kind of, what are we missing? What other signal-based workflows should we be paying attention to? And then, obviously AI is able to like help us extract those patterns and those insights. And then, I was going to say an interesting one is also, this is like on the agentic automation side, but when a rep is only single threaded, we can find additional stakeholders that they should be reaching out to, enrich them at the contact level, give the rep really good insights about who they are and what they might be caring about based on, their web presence or LinkedIn presence, and say, you should be reaching out to these people for these reasons, kind of put that in front of them. And I think it all comes down to, I think this is what kind of Lee was driving at, but like, how do we increase revenue generating activity? Because so much of what we lob over to the reps is non-revenue generating activity. I think I saw in a Gartner Salesforce report recently that the average revenue generating activity for a rep is 25%, which is pretty low, right? When you think about it. And how I always think about, how do we increase that? So how do we drive productivity by automating all the grunt work that needs to be off reps' plate, giving them those prioritized leads and signals so they can just be much more effective, much more productive, and then focus on those revenue generating activities at scale.
Lauren, I was actually building a presentation for today that highlights a stat very similar. It might be the same one.
Oh, okay.
72% of sellers' time is spent on non-selling activities.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll have to cross-reference sources because I can give you the report that I have too.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. And everything, it's like their world is constantly changing, and we're constantly telling them that this is how it is now, and here's the change, and here's what you have to do differently. And so adding to that all the changes, right, that they have to, somehow like adapt to, it's a really hard environment. And I think when we're building something like this, we have to be empathic to them. I think Natalie also mentioned that, like, somebody mentioned that we shouldn't be like bombarding them with a bunch of signals or a bunch of plays. Like, we should really be thinking about what are the highest value activities that they should be pursuing.
We see the word play, right? You put the signal automation, agentic workflow, whatever, that's your play, right? It's one thing to give them a signal, but sometimes the reps just don't know, okay, somebody came on the website, it's the first party signal, what should I do about it? You package them with the next step recommendation as well as the workflow automation to make it a play. I would love to have each one of us give us your favorite play. Like, give me one play that has moved the needle the most for your organization. Anyone? Nikita, you can start. Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the cool ones that has been super high leverage for us is leveraging our own partners to drive and get in front of the right audience at the right time. So, obviously this is probably a little bit biased because we're a partner network and a platform, but we do tend to find that some of the partner signals allow us to quickly understand if someone is in market, if they're buying similar technology to ones that we would know would ultimately precipitate the buying of additional partner technology. And so we do a lot of like account mapping through Crossbeam, for example, and identify, cool, like once someone else actually purchases another specific solution, that is a good opportunity for us to reach out because they'll likely need partner stack in advance of that too. So tapping into some of those second party signals has been a kind of a game changer for us. One, in changing the way we do outreach. Cold outreach is obviously very difficult these days and still continues to become more so. And so this allows us to leverage some of those partner intent to warm up some of that outreach, but also go through the partners if we need to.
okay, Natalie.
Yeah, I have a few examples for actually customers versus prospects. I mean, one of our biggest intent signals is if they used us at a past company. And getting that information, not just to see, okay, can we sell them to the next company, but also getting ahead to see if our champion's leaving and trying to pull in new champions. So on the customer success side, we have signals set up around like, are they hiring? Did they fundraise? Are they merging? So we can try to get ahead of, oh, if this is an indication that maybe our champion's leaving or we happen to pull in other ones. And then obviously on the net new prospecting side, if we do see anyone's leaving, getting in front of them, congratulating them. We sometimes send like a little gift saying congrats on the new job, not making a hard sell then, but just making sure we're top of mind as they then start to bring in new tools to the new job.
I couldn't agree more. We self-serving, but we recently released jobs intel is what we call, and the traction and interest from just within our couple thousand customers has been immense because it just makes sense, right? Somebody's already used to your product. They know the strengths and also the weaknesses, right? They're familiar with your company. Wherever they go, they will prefer to use that. So couldn't agree more. Lee, what's your favorite play? Or
Yeah, I'll give one for prospects. So we when we like all of us, we don't win every single deal that we go after. And so for a new prospect, if we have a sales rep going after a deal and they don't win the deal and it moves to close lost, what that'll do is that'll actually create a first party signal to our CRO over a certain deal threshold, but to our CRO, and it'll get entered into a sales loft cadence for him to reach out to their leadership team and ask for feedback. It's
I love
done
that.
automated, but like the response rate that we get on these is like unbelievable. We've turned a few deals around doing that, but at the very least, it creates that executive connection. It rolls out the red carpet for at a future point when the prospect may want to come back and evaluate. But it's all done. I mean, at the beginning of the call, I was talking about first party signals. Like this is a great first party signal example where in our CRM and in SalesLoft, we just after close loss, we lost the deal. It drove a signal, drove a reach out cadence, and then we get more conversations.
that's awesome. Awesome. Lauren, what's your favorite play?
One of my favorite plays we ran at Intercom was also on the PLG and customer side, and it was our AI automation play. And so what we did is we started with, Intercom is a customer support technology company. So we were able through our platform to understand any customer's support volume and whether that was trending upwards. And then we also looked at product usage data. So were they using more of the product and like adding more seats? And between those two, I think that's an indicator of, potential for upsell and cross sell. But we also layered in some technographic data on whether they were AI adopted in some form. So what kind of their AI tool stack looked like, because we were launching a brand new AI tool, AI agent. And so the targeting those particular accounts and sending those leads to reps, it was extremely successful because, it was an easier sell because we knew that they were already AI adopted. And we knew that they would be ready for automation. So again, it's that proxy for kind of being in market for a solution that will really help them with their problems. And so, it's just a natural way for the reps to go in and have a really great conversation with someone who we know that they're experiencing, issues, and our solution was a really good fit.
This is great. This is great. So for us, the biggest outcome was ICP using data signals and automation to define our ICP because we are a small to mid-sized company, and our TAM is immense. Like each one of your companies is using somebody right in our space. So you are a prospect for us. How do we define where to use our resources the most? So we use our close won, close loss deals from the past data from Salesforce and our own data and signals to figure out the AI-based data-driven approach of finding the ICP. And we actually turned that into a product because when we saw that this is the problem for us, why not convert it to a product? And most of our customers use ICP Intel to just figure out where do we focus our energy and time. Cool. So we talk about rep productivity a lot, about the outcomes that we're looking to derive from AI signals and automation. What other outcomes are you in your organization trying to drive from signals, AI, and automations? Natalie,
This
you
was
can go.
mentioned. Yeah, but for us, a big one is more just like efficiency metrics and conversion rates. But not like, yes, obviously straight pipeline. And we have seen at this point that by using signals in our PLG motion, it's now like 30% of our pipeline comes from that motion. But really, it's trying to figure out, okay, how can we make sure that we are a certain percentage conversion rate for our PQL specifically of the ones that we've identified, how many of them are converting? Or if we're using signals for more top of funnel, we might be looking at like engaged accounts. Because especially for a more ABM campaign, sometimes it's very hard just to measure the success in just pure pipeline. So if we're taking like 200 target accounts and then using first party signals like website identification, did they sign up for free trials? Did they go through a demo? Figuring out what percentage of those are engaged and then what percentage of those converted accounts are engaged. So obviously we are using it for that top level pipeline revenue, but really more making sure that each of our channels are efficient as they can be.
Efficiency for you. Nikita?
Yeah, I think that the major thing that we're really trying to get to is how do we identify the right ICP customers? So how do we decrease the customer acquisition cost meaningfully while also driving NRR up, right? So for us, like this is just as much about pipeline as it is churn prevention and churn reduction holistically, right? So how do we identify the right signals that drive the right customer value that we know will ultimately have a strong net revenue retention. That is like the most important thing for us because it's not just really about that pipeline for us. It's really about like who's going to stay, who's going to expand, and who's going to meaningful. Like who do we put resources behind? Because we know that they'll expand.
Okay, this is great. NRR. Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has mentioned the ones that I would call out. The additional metrics that I would say are really important as well is being able to track, how many plays were actually attempted and what the outcomes of those plays were. So you can continue to refine and continuously improve and, obviously make the entire ecosystem more successful. So it's not just to set it and forget it. And, signals can be in flux and there can be new signals. But yeah, I mean, CAC, NRR, pipeline, engagement, all of those are really great sales metrics that you would want to be tracking.
That you're looking for the outcome. Lee, what did we not cover?
Yeah, I think we covered a good amount of like leading indicators, which I agree with all of them, and some lagging. I'll hit on like two lagging indicators that we really value when we deploy certain plays or new motion in general within our go-to-market teams. We have every rep and every manager report on rep participation. So what rep participation is a bookings number based upon the segment that each rep has accomplished. That's different from quota. It's just like their name is on the board in some significant way. And they have to share on a forecast call, I have 80%, 50%, 9 out of 10 of my reps like forecasted to participate, which is over that threshold, which shows like in this path to profitability or this world of profitability versus growth at all costs, which is like the world we left, and now we're in a world of EBITDA margins and profitability, is like you want to make sure that your reps have their names on the board and that they are contributing. Otherwise, your team is too inflated, or you don't have the right team, or those reps like aren't the ones that are working out. So that's one thing that like when we deploy something new, do we get more rep participation on the board? That's one. The second one is productivity per rep. And the way that we calculate that is total dollars over a certain team or segment divided by the ramped sales equivalent. So like the total number of ramped reps that we have. As we see that number go up, we know that we're getting more productive. If we see it go down, we're getting less productive. Maybe we have too many reps. Maybe we don't have the right team. Same kind of thing. But those are like some of the lagging things outside of just a straight bookings number that Signals really drives, because it's meant to, again, back to Natalie's point, it's meant to drive productivity at an individual level, not necessarily just a team or an aggregate, and have 2 reps close monster deals that help the company or the team hit their quota. We need to see like reps actually driving more efficiency and productivity in case one, leaves or, moves the team or whatever.
Cool. Awesome. I know we are at time, but there's some questions here. One of the main questions that came in, how do I get started? So if you have to just say, give our audience one tip. They now know much about signals and automation, but how do they get started? What is that one tip that you can give to our audience to get started today?
Honestly, I'd say like being an organization that just has kind of started to leverage signals, I think, a lot of people will push you to focus on like first, second, or third. I think like start with your first party intent signals first. Those are the ones that are coming into you. I think those are the ones that you can meaningfully start to understand and go after quickly. That's my like just simple advice for anyone just starting out.
Then this is great advice. You have so much of first party signals. Start using them, Natalie.
Just a quick thing I'd add, just go ask your sales reps why do they love certain leads and not, and that will often be what signal you're going after. It might be they come from a specific industry, or they have shown they come from this channel, or they said this word, and just try to figure out if you can find that as a signal.
How can you amplify them? Lee, thank you, Natalie.
I'm gonna double down on Nikita's on first party. I also think like you could probably pull from Natalie's too. Whatever signal you want to leverage on first party, just pull a report from like your CRM, or like go and like you don't need to buy anything. Just like you have data, pull it, and then ask a small set of reps or all of your reps to go and focus on like these things based on the parameters that you want them to gauge, like the quality of those leads, the conversion down the funnel, and then like do it a couple more times, and then maybe go buy something.
This is great. Thanks, Lee. Thank you. Lauren.
I would just add to what Natalie was saying about querying your reps, but also asking them, what signals do you wish you had access to? Because we can pretty much find those signals, and deliver them to the reps. So, I think with AI now, like there's so much creativity that we can bring to this entire process, and it's not limited to, maybe what we think. So that should be an input as well.
Yeah, this is awesome. So, at Sales Intel, we have created a list of 37 signals that we provide to our customers. You want to generate the pipeline, look at the churn number, increase the NRR. And when we go to our customers, we give them, okay, here are the 37 signals that we have. Pick the ones that you wish you had, and then tell us ones that you wish you had, but they're not part of this, so that we can go and build those signals for you. Well, thank you so much for everybody's time. I know there's some questions. We are going to, as we are at time here, we're going to take those questions and get the responses from our panelists and send them via emails. Okay. But thanks again for joining. Thanks everybody for tuning in to our webinar. I hope everybody got a nugget or two to take away from this.